Hi, my name is Soraya Linth. I am 24 years old, and I was born and grew up in Portland, Oregon. Portland is a city with a lot of rain, lots of green trees, and many memories. Some of these memories are happy, and some are sad, and some I thought I would never want to remember. My family was middle class. My dad worked in a warehouse, and my mom worked at the hospital as a nurse at night. I have one older sister named Lysandra. Lysandra and I were very different. From the beginning, it felt like my family loved Lysandra more than me. She was the favorite. She always got praise from everyone, received nice gifts, and had special opportunities that I could only dream about. I never felt like I was standing on the same starting line as her. I lost count of how many times people compared me to Lysandra. My grades, my looks, my behavior. The phrase, "Why can't you be more like Lysandra?" became a household rule, something I heard again and again. At first, I tried to make my parents proud. I thought if I worked harder, studied harder, and behaved perfectly, maybe they would notice me too. But I slowly realized that no matter what I did, I would never be what they wanted me to be. So, I learned to be independent. I learned to follow my own path and make my own way in the world. Even though I tried to be strong deep inside, I still wanted my family to notice me. I wanted one moment where they would say, "We are proud of you, Soraya." After 4 years at Stanford University, one of the best schools in the country, I graduated with the highest honors. I had worked very hard to get there. I had a full scholarship, which meant the school paid for my tuition, but I had to work part-time jobs to cover all of my living expenses. I held my diploma in my hands and thought maybe now my family would finally celebrate me and be proud. When I was at the San Francisco airport, just before my flight back to Portland, I sent a message in our family group chat. I kept it short. Flight lands at 3 p.m. Can someone pick me up? I didn't even mention my degree or awards. I just asked for help. The reply came faster than I expected. And it was cold. Lysandra answered first. "We're busy. Try Uber." A minute later, my mom added, "Why didn't you plan better?" I typed back just 2 words. "No worries." I looked calm on the outside, but inside, I felt a hollow, empty space growing in my chest. I told myself I was used to it, but it still hurt badly. I had a window seat on the plane, and as it took off, I watched the clouds drift past. I thought about going home, not because I expected hugs or congratulations, but because I had prepared myself for the moment I would face my family, the people who never believed in me. They had no idea that by that evening, they would see me somewhere they could never imagine, and their disbelief would show. Have you ever felt forgotten in your own family? Have you ever tried to do something amazing and felt like no one noticed? If you are reading this, where are you in the world? Leave a comment so I know I'm not alone. I still remember my 10th birthday very clearly. It was a rainy February morning in Portland. The sky was gray, and tiny raindrops clung to the windows. I woke up excited, imagining that when I went downstairs I would see a birthday cake, a few balloons, and my mom smiling at me saying, "Happy birthday, sweetheart." But when I stepped down the stairs, the kitchen was empty except for the smell of strong coffee. My mom was eating a quick slice of bread in her nurse uniform, checking the clock. My dad was hiding behind the newspaper, occasionally flipping a page. Lysandra was getting ready for dance class. No one said a word about my birthday. When I quietly reminded my mom, she said, "I'm busy. We'll celebrate over the weekend." That weekend came, and still there was no cake, no candles, and no one even mentioned it again. That was the first time I felt small and invisible, even in my own home. In 7th grade, I won first place in a citywide speech competition. It was the first time I stood on a big stage under bright lights and received a medal from the mayor himself. I looked into the audience, searching for a familiar face, but all I saw were strangers applauding. The seats for my family were completely empty. My mom had texted earlier to say her hospital shift was running longer than expected, and my dad had to take Lysandra dress shopping for her school dance. I hung the medal at the corner of my desk. But for the whole following week, no one asked a single question or offered congratulations. A month later, Lysandra joined a school fashion show and didn't even win first place. Yet my parents took the whole family out to celebrate her and bought her a brand new sewing machine. That's when I realized the difference between us as sisters wasn't measured in blood. It was measured in the way our parents showed love. When Lysandra turned 16, my parents bought her a brand new car, saying it would make it easier for her to get to school and do extracurricular activities. I was 17 then, about to start my senior year of high school. I wanted a car too so I could work part-time and save for college. When I asked, my dad said, If you want one, earn the money yourself. So I worked. I got a job as a cashier at a coffee shop in the mornings and as a stock clerk at a grocery store in the evenings. Nearly a year later, I managed to buy a used car. The paint was peeling, and there was a long tear across the back seat. The day I drove it home, no one in my family noticed or came outside to see it. Lysandra looked through the window and said, "Looks like a delivery van." I smiled faintly and walked straight to my room. The hardest blow came during college application season. I was accepted into Stanford University on a full scholarship. This was a rare accomplishment that my homeroom teacher said hadn't happened in years. But I still needed money for living expenses and books. I hoped my parents could help me just a little. My father said, "You already have a scholarship. You don't need more. We have to save money for Lysandra. She just got into fashion school in New York. The tuition is expensive." I nodded, but inside it felt like someone had slammed a door in my face. That moment made me understand something clearly. Their love and support always came with conditions. The condition was that I had to choose the path they wanted, live in a way that made them proud, or be more like Lysandra. If I wasn't like that, I was on my own. From that moment, I decided to rely only on myself, whether the waters were calm or stormy. When I left Portland to start college, I carried with me determination and independence. I knew that at Stanford, most students came from wealthy families or had connections in academia and business. In my first week in a computer science class, I listened to classmates talk about summer trips to Europe, internships arranged by their parents, or startups they had already launched with family money. My own story was much simpler. I had spent the entire summer working at a coffee shop to pay for my textbooks. I wasn't ashamed, but I sometimes felt out of place. I worked the morning shift at a cafe near campus from 6 to 8:30 a.m. The smell of coffee, freshly baked muffins, and the sound of the coffee grinder started my day. A few professors stopped by sometimes, surprised to see me behind the counter. I would just smile and say, "Just part of managing expenses." After my shift, I rushed to class and spent afternoons in the lab doing AI research. I was fortunate to be hired as an assistant to Professor Selim, a leading expert in machine learning. At first, my tasks were small, processing data and recording results. But through persistence and turning in work early, I gradually earned more important responsibilities. Professor Selim later introduced me to a small tech startup in Silicon Valley that was looking for help on a medical image analysis project. The first time I walked into the startup office, I was surrounded by smart, passionate people. I could feel the weight of skeptical eyes on me. Some didn't hide their surprise when they learned I was just a sophomore, a woman, and came from a family with no background in technology. In the first meeting, I suggested a way to improve data processing speed. One older engineer smiled faintly and said, "Sounds nice, but we're talking about a complex system here, not a class project." I didn't react. I just wrote it down, determined to prove myself with results. During the day, I worked at the office. At night, I stayed in my dorm coding, testing, and documenting every discovery. There were nights I stayed up until 3 a.m. just to make the algorithm faster. The next morning, even with dark circles under my eyes, I was back behind the coffee counter, smiling at customers. The project we worked on had the potential to save thousands of lives. It was an AI system that could analyze MRI scans and detect early signs of serious diseases with incredible accuracy. At first, people said it was too ambitious. I proposed combining deep learning with contextual image analysis. This approach allowed the AI to understand not just the abnormality itself, but also the surrounding structures. Professor Selim supported my idea. The company formed a team to develop it and appointed me as the lead programmer. 3 years of intense work passed. We continuously improved the system, passed multiple rounds of clinical testing, and finally received an invitation to compete in the National Technology Innovation Competition. On the day of the presentation, I wore a simple suit, tied my hair neatly back, and stood under the stage lights with a steady voice. When the demo video played, showing results far better than our competitors, a murmur went through the audience. One of the judges, a Microsoft representative, leaned forward and took notes. When the MC announced that Luminina Diagnostics had won first place, my hands shook. Every sleepless night, every dismissive glance, every exhausting part-time shift, all of it had led to this moment. The victory didn't stop with a trophy. Microsoft wanted to collaborate on scaling the technology globally. A major venture capital firm expressed interest in investing millions of dollars. When the company restructured, I became co-founder and chief technology officer. The new office in San Francisco was bright and modern. Every day, I felt like I was rewriting my life story. For the first time, my bank account was comfortably full. But the greatest reward was proving to myself that my worth was never defined by my background. My family rarely asked about my work. They still thought I was doing something vague in tech. I didn't bother explaining because I knew the day would come when my results would speak for themselves. That day was approaching faster than I could imagine. Graduation day at Stanford began with clear blue skies. I stood among hundreds of students in red gowns, a square cap on my head, holding my diploma. Around me, friends hugged their parents. Cheers mixed with confetti popping in the air. I smiled when someone pulled me into a group photo, but deep inside I felt empty. 3 seats in the family section were completely empty. No one from Portland had flown down to see me. After the ceremony, I walked back to my dorm room. My suitcase was open, waiting for me. I began to pack. Inside the suitcase went my clothes, my shoes, a few small personal things, and also something invisible but very important. The memories of all the years I had spent growing up, learning, and working hard all by myself. Each memory was like a little stone I had picked up along the path of my life, and now I carried them all in that suitcase, ready for the next adventure. Today, I was flying back to Portland. This trip was special. I was not just going home for a visit. I had planned to go to an awards ceremony for my company, Luminina Diagnostics. The ceremony would be at the Portland Art Museum Ballroom, one of the fanciest places in the city. People would be dressed up, the room would shine with light, and cameras would be there to show everything on television across the country. Before I left, I sent a message in our family group chat. It was simple. Flight lands at 3 p.m. Can someone pick me up? I didn't explain anything else. I didn't tell them I would be on national television that evening. I wanted to see if anyone cared enough to ask me about it. Also, I had learned over the years not to expect too much from them. As the plane started moving down the runway, my phone buzzed. Lysandra's reply came first. It read, "We're busy. Try Uber." Just 4 words. Short, cold, final. A minute later, my mother sent a message. "Why didn't you plan better?" I stared at my phone for a few seconds. My chest felt empty and cold. I typed back 2 words. No worries. I wasn't angry. I didn't argue. But inside, a hollow space had begun to grow. The plane landed on time in Portland. I picked up my suitcase and walked through the baggage claim area. There were people hugging each other, laughing, holding flowers, and meeting loved ones. But I didn't see a single familiar face. Not surprising, but it still hurt a little. I made my way to the rideshare area and ordered an Uber. A silver car pulled up. The driver, a kind-looking man in his early 50s, looked at me through the rearview mirror and noticed my diploma. He asked, "Big day?" I smiled and said, "Yeah." He nodded and started driving. Soft jazz music played in the car. I leaned my head against the window and watched the rainy streets of Portland. The green trees looked the same as I remembered, but I had changed. The city had not changed, but I had. When I got back to my temporary apartment, I quickly changed into a sleek black suit. I tied my hair in a low bun and applied light makeup. I wanted to walk into the ceremony looking confident, strong, and proud. I wanted to show the world that I had made my own path in life without anyone's help. The Portland Art Museum Ballroom looked magical that evening. A long red carpet led to the entrance, and golden light reflected off the beautiful old walls. Inside, round tables covered with white cloths sat under sparkling chandeliers. Crystal glasses glittered in the warm light. People were talking, laughing, clinking glasses, and walking around. Reporters and camera crews moved about, making sure everything was captured perfectly. I was shown to the area for startup founders. I saw young business owners, investors, and a few people I remembered from past tech conferences. I felt a little nervous, but mostly excited. When the MC stepped onto the stage, all the lights turned toward him. After announcing a few awards, he said, "And the award for the Best Technology Project of the Year, with $1.2 million in funding and a strategic partnership with Microsoft, goes to Luminina Diagnostics, co-founder and chief technology officer, Soraya Linth." The room erupted with applause. My heart pounded. I stood up, walked to the stage, and cameras clicked rapidly around me. On the giant screen behind me, a video about my company played. It showed our modern lab, engineers working with focus, and our AI system analyzing MRI scans with incredible accuracy. Then it showed me, concentrating on lines of code, working carefully, my eyes full of determination. When the MC handed me the award plaque and the big check, I felt the weight of every late-night shift, every moment someone doubted me, and every time I had been left behind. It all led to this moment. I took the microphone and looked at the audience. I didn't search for my parents or Lysandra. I knew somewhere in Portland, they were seeing me on their television screen. I said slowly, "To everyone who doubted me, thank you. You taught me to believe in myself." The room went quiet for a few seconds. Then the applause came, loud and joyful. People cheered and clapped. I stepped off the stage, feeling proud and strong. My phone buzzed nonstop in my pocket. My family group chat must have been full of messages. I didn't open it. I let it keep buzzing while strangers came up to congratulate me. Their belief in me felt wonderful. That was the sound of a new chapter in my life beginning. That evening, I went to my parents' house for dinner. The kitchen was warm and cozy, glowing with soft yellow light. A pan of lasagna fresh from the oven filled the air with the delicious smell of cheese. My father poured red wine into glasses. Lysandra sat across from me, scrolling on her phone, occasionally laughing at something she saw. The television was on in the living room, but the volume was low. No one was really paying attention to it. Everything felt like a normal evening. Then the MC's voice came clearly from the TV. The award for Best Technology Project of the Year, with $1.2 million in funding and a partnership with Microsoft, goes to Luminina Diagnostics, co-founder and chief technology officer Soraya Linth. My name appeared on the screen. My father froze with the knife in his hand. My mother lifted her head slowly. Lysandra stopped scrolling and stared at the screen. Then the camera showed me in my black suit, holding the award, smiling and speaking into the microphone. "To everyone who doubted me, thank you. You taught me to believe in myself." The room went silent. My mother opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but she couldn't find the words. My father sat still, staring at the television, trying to understand. Lysandra whispered to herself, "That's her," a mix of surprise and disbelief in her voice. The news segment continued. It showed our lab, our engineers working, and the AI system's amazing results. My parents and Lysandra couldn't look away. My mother leaned forward, trying to see more clearly. My father exhaled slowly. Lysandra's hands gripped her phone tightly as she watched, curious and unsure. Then my mother's phone started buzzing. Messages from relatives and friends poured in. "Oh my God! She's incredible! Congratulations to your family! So proud!" My father's phone lit up with calls from old friends. "Jeff, is that your daughter? Amazing!" The kitchen's energy changed from quiet shock to restless urgency. My mother turned to my father. "Did you know about this?" He shook his head slowly. "No, not at all." Lysandra stayed silent, her eyes glued to the screen. She had always been the one who got the most attention, and now she looked a little lost. They sent messages to me in the group chat, but I didn't answer. I let them wait. And this time, I knew I could make them wait longer than ever before. 2 days after the awards ceremony, I was in my San Francisco office. I was reviewing a partnership plan with Microsoft when the receptionist said, "3 guests are waiting in the lobby." At first, I was puzzled. I hadn't scheduled any meetings. But then I heard their names, my father, my mother, and Lysandra. I knew exactly who they were. From the elevator area, I saw them standing near the reception desk. They were dressed nicely. My father in a dark blue button-up shirt and neatly pressed pants. My mother is in a light floral dress. Lysandra in a cream-colored blazer. Her hair was curled in soft waves. I invited them into a small meeting room. I poured tea and sat down across from them. At first, the conversation was polite. "You've really grown," my mother said. "We had no idea your company was this big." But after a few minutes, my mother leaned forward. "We actually came today to talk about Lysandra. She wants to start a fashion brand, but she needs money. We thought you could help. Just a little, to rent a space and get supplies. Think of it as family helping each other." I set down my teacup without saying a word. My father tried to explain further. "You're doing very well. It's normal for families to support each other." Lysandra stayed quiet, her face hopeful, waiting for my answer. I remembered my past. My 10th birthday, which no one remembered. The metal shelf in my room that had stayed untouched. The time I worked 2 jobs to buy an old beat-up car. The time I asked for help with living expenses at Stanford and was told, "We need to save money for Lysandra." Those memories came back, stacking up like old pages in a book. My mother kept talking. "We are family. We should lift each other up. If Lysandra succeeds, the family becomes stronger." I smiled faintly, but my eyes stayed serious. I said slowly, family. I have spent many years learning what that word really means. In our house, it didn't always mean help or support. When I needed someone, the seats were empty. When I asked for money, the answer was no. Now that I am successful, suddenly family becomes a reason to give. That doesn't feel fair to me. My father frowned. What does that mean? I straightened my back. It means I don't remember benefiting from our family's success before. I only remember being compared to Lysandra, feeling like I would never measure up. If Lysandra really loves fashion, she will find a way on her own. I will not give money just to continue old habits of favoritism. My mother leaned back, slightly annoyed. She had wanted to smooth things over, but my words made the air tense. My father sighed, like he didn't want to talk anymore. I could see it in the way he rubbed his forehead and looked down at the floor. But I stood up before he could leave. I haven't forgotten that I'm your daughter, I said firmly. My voice was steady, but my heart was beating fast. But I also haven't forgotten that I was treated like I didn't belong in my own home. Because of that, I will not let it happen again. They started to leave, but I stayed sitting looking at them and spoke slowly and clearly. I haven't forgotten that I'm your daughter. But I haven't forgotten that I was treated like an outsider in my own home. My mother froze at the doorway. My father turned slightly to look at me. Lysandra, standing quietly behind them, held her purse tightly. I knew this was the right moment to say everything I had been holding inside for so many years. I didn't want anyone to come back later and ask the same thing again. Since I was little, I had learned not to expect much from this family. Not because I didn't want to, but because everything I got always came with a condition. If I did what they wanted, I got attention. If I went my own way, I was left alone, even when I needed them most. I had lived like that for years. Today, I was going to apply the same principle to them. Everyone is responsible for their own choices. My father's brow furrowed, like he wanted to argue, but I raised my hand to stop him. I never asked anyone to pay for my school, buy me a car, or miss work to attend my graduation. So why now, when I am successful, should I be responsible for someone else's plans just because we are family? I built my life on my own. Lysandra can too if she truly wants to. Passion isn't about borrowing money from someone else. Passion is about how far you are willing to go to make your dreams real. My mother tried to speak softly. But families have to help each other. Blood is blood. You can't turn your back on your family. I shook my head, not trying to be polite this time. Blood doesn't mean one person only gives and the other only takes. If family is a place where one person carries everything while the others only come when they need something, then it is not family. I will not be part of that anymore. The room felt heavier, like the air itself was full of tension. I stood, walked to my desk, and opened a big, thick folder. I am going to continue living in San Francisco. My company is growing, and I have decided to use most of my money to start a scholarship fund for young women who want to study STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. I want girls like me, who were underestimated because of their background or because they are girls, to have a chance to chase their dreams without feeling like a burden. I looked directly at my mother. That is the family I choose. A family built on trust and support, not pressure and favoritism. My father sighed again and turned away. My mother pressed her lips together, her earlier pleading look gone, replaced by disappointment and helplessness. Lysandra said nothing, but I could feel the tension in her shoulders as she walked past me. I went with them to the hallway, stopping at the door. I know this isn't the answer you wanted to hear. But if you truly want this relationship to continue, it has to be rebuilt on respect and equality. If not, it's better to keep our distance. No one said anything. Their footsteps faded down the hall until the building was quiet again. Back in my office, I sat down and reopened the scholarship fund plan. With a few clicks, I confirmed the first group of young women who would receive support this year. Girls who would not have to start from zero like I once did. As I signed the confirmation, I felt a lightness in my chest. Not because I had said no to my parents, but because I was investing in what I believed in instead of repeating the patterns that had hurt me. I understood that from this day forward, my family would see me differently. They might resent me, stay silent, or find a way to come back when they wanted something. But I also understood something far more important. I was no longer bound by the need for their approval. That freedom felt like the first deep breath I had taken in years. After that meeting, I knew I needed a completely new beginning, not just in work, but in my personal life. I spent weeks looking for a place that would give me the sense of safety and freedom I had never truly had growing up. And then I found it, a small, sunlit apartment in the Marina district of San Francisco, with a balcony that faced the Golden Gate Bridge. Every morning, sunlight poured through the white curtains and scattered across the shimmering bay. Every night, the lights of the bridge sparkled like a string of tiny jewels hanging in the dark sky. In the living room, I placed a large bookshelf filled with books I had collected over the years. I hung a few framed photos that captured important milestones from my startup journey. I set up a cozy armchair by the window, a perfect spot to read or watch the waves roll toward the shore. Not long after, I adopted a golden retriever from the animal shelter. I named him Milo. It was a simple name, but to me it stood for the warmth and loyalty I had once lacked. Milo quickly became my constant companion. In the mornings, we ran along the coastline. The sea breeze carried a salty tang against my face, and Milo's golden ears flapped in the wind. In the evenings, he sprawled at my feet while I worked or curled up beside me when I watched a movie. Work at Lumina Diagnostics still took up most of my time, but I made it a priority to engage more with San Francisco's startup community. I attended conferences, shared my story of starting from nothing, and listened to other journeys, each one carrying its own lesson and perspective. I also joined a small circle of female founders, a group where we supported each other both professionally and emotionally. Over time, they became my second family, not bound by blood, but always ready to celebrate my wins and stand by me when things got hard. I dedicated time to growing the STEM Scholarship Fund for young women. Each month, I met with potential candidates, listened to their stories, and saw the light in their eyes when they received the good news. Every time I thought of the 18-year-old girl who once walked into Stanford with nothing but an old suitcase and determination, I knew I was giving others what I had once longed for. Not just financial support, but the affirmation that they could succeed. One autumn afternoon, I stood before a group of female students at a technology seminar. When the Q&A ended, one of them asked hesitantly, "Do you have any advice for people who are seeking recognition from their family or others?" I stayed quiet for a few seconds, looking around the room before I answered. Recognition isn't something you ask for. You create it, and you give it to yourself. When you do, you're no longer bound by whether or not someone else sees you. Those words weren't just theory. They were the truth I had lived. I saw a few faces light up, and I knew I had planted a small seed in someone's heart. I no longer waited for congratulatory messages or calls from my parents whenever I reached a new milestone. I didn't feel the need to prove myself just to earn their approval. My new home, Milo, my friends, and the community I was helping to build, they all made up a life I once thought existed only in imagination. And more importantly, I knew I deserved it. Not because anyone said so, but because I had built it myself. A year later, my life still revolved around my work at Lumina Diagnostics, tech conferences, and community projects. That December, an unexpected piece of news arrived. I had been named to Forbes 30 Under 30 in the technology category. The award ceremony was held in New York, bringing together hundreds of exceptional young leaders from around the world. As I stepped onto the stage to accept my plaque, the sound of applause filled the room. But this time, it didn't feel like the past. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone else. It was about honoring my own journey. That night, back at my hotel, my phone lit up with dozens of new notifications. Friends and colleagues sent congratulatory messages. Among them, I noticed my parents had shared the Forbes article on their Facebook pages with the caption, "Proud of our daughter." Lysandra had left a clapping emoji. I read it and simply closed the phone, not out of anger, but because I knew I no longer needed late recognition to understand my worth. I had come too far to go back searching for something I had once waited for in vain. A few days later, back in San Francisco, I drove out of the office on a late afternoon. The Golden Gate Bridge came into view, the sunset washing the water in gold. I rolled the window down, letting the ocean breeze rush in, carrying the salt and chill of the Pacific. Milo lay quietly in the back seat, his head resting on the window, his golden ears flickering gently with every gust of wind. I turned on soft jazz music, loosened my grip on the wheel, and let the rhythm of the drive blend with the rhythm of the waves. A calm began to spread through me, filling the empty spaces I once thought could never be filled. This city wasn't where I was born, but it was the place I had chosen to build a new life. A place where my worth was recognized not because of blood ties or favoritism, but because I had created it myself. As the car rolled across the bridge, I smiled. Not the smile of someone who had defeated anyone, but the smile of someone who had finally found herself. I whispered softly, as if speaking to all the years behind me. I didn't win because they lost. I won because I chose myself. If you grew up feeling abandoned in your own home, overlooked, compared, or pushed aside, know that you are not alone. The indifference or coldness of others does not define your worth. What matters is not whether they see you, but whether you dare to see yourself. You cannot change the past or force anyone to love you the right way, but you can choose how to love and protect yourself starting today. Create your own opportunities, set your own standards, and walk forward boldly, even when no one stands beside you. Recognition is not something to beg for. It's something you build step by step, through every effort and every time you stand back up. One day, you'll realize you no longer seek the approving glance of those who turned away. Because when you choose yourself, you have already won. Not because they lost, but because you became the person they never believed you could be.